Apparently. Yeah, okay.
And we are live.
Hello. Welcome to the Chino Chat, the Chino Show podcast.
He fucked it up.
Anyways,
He already messed it up.
this is the third installment. The third week we've been doing this, but it's only the second episode. And that's because the first one was super scuffed. But now we're on the second episode, and it's somewhat smooth sailing. Past the first minute, hopefully.
Smoother sailing than the first episode for sure.
Yeah.
So
And we
to
have,
keep up with to keep with tradition, it's getting kind of cold. The weather's all right though. It's pretty good. Just so that's the first thing we
Yeah.
bring up.
Pretty
Right,
cold.
yeah.
Little nippy.
But yeah, go ahead,
I
Blaine.
was just wearing. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So we have a special guest today. We got the one and only DM Carl. Why don't you introduce yourself, Carl?
Hi everybody, my name's Carl Schubert. I'm the DM for these three clowns that I'm with right now. This is my first time on a podcast, so this will be fun. I always wanted to do a podcast myself, but just never found the time, so I guess this is a little bit of a test run for me, so...
This is your stepping
Yeah.
stone to your own future.
Put a toe in the water for this. So,
If you did a podcast, would it be D&D themed? I don't want to
Probably.
I don't want to pin your whole personality to D&D. That's definitely
I mean,
not entirely who you are, but it
Yeah,
seems like you invest a lot of time into D&D.
I do invest quite a lot of time. So there are a few things that I would potentially do. So there's either that or I would do probably like a historical and philosophical podcast, because that's what I'm studying for school. So I could probably do that for a podcast, which I think that would be fun. But D&D is probably the one of the larger parts of my life. So it would probably be that, just because it's fun, it's a hobby, and you never want to make one of your hobbies too similar to what you plan on doing for work. So
Yeah.
I can see
Yeah.
that. That actually segues really well into this first question that I have for you, which I know you explained a little bit yesterday, but how did you get really into D&D and DMing a little bit later, specifically?
Okay, so I started playing D&D when I was 4 years old. I would always be sitting in the living room when my dad would have his old college friends over, and they would be playing D&D in the living room. My mom and dad played D&D in college, and they carried it on through their adult lives. So I got drafted in fairly young because I wanted to play, because I wanted to be with the adults.
Yeah.
And so my dad would make me these really overpowered characters that couldn't die, because like little kids don't really do much, but you just need them to not die and enjoy the experience. And so that's how I kind of started. But like I started consciously gaming, like making my own characters, probably when I was 8, 9-ish.
Mhm.
And that was really fun. I enjoyed that a lot, and I've played a lot of characters from that point till now. And then probably when I was 16 or 17, I started making my own homebrew worlds and starting to DM sessions. And I started with my family because I wanted to test them out, stuff like that. And I have a campaign with them that's been going on for like a year or so now.
Wow.
So that's fun. And then I started DMing my college groups, which they're usually shorter, but you know, some of them are showing some promise to be long term. And then I have the one with y'all. So yeah.
So, what's the longest D&D session you've had, or like still going? You know?
Session or campaign?
Oh, that's a good question.
Both. I'll get both.
Yeah, both. Start with
All right.
campaign.
Okay, so the longest running campaign I've DM'd is the one with my family, which is currently running at actually, let me think. That's 18 months. So
Wow.
that's a pretty decent campaign right there.
Yeah.
And then I would probably say the longest session I've DM'd, let me think. I think it was a 13-hour session.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Yeah, we
Man.
started we started at 9 a.m. and we went till 10 p.m. So
Wow. I thought our
yeah.
session yesterday was long.
Yeah, and we had a
It was like
break in
what?
between.
It was
as
like
well.
what? Maybe 8 hours total.
I
Was it?
think so, because we
maybe like
started
5.
Started around
4:30.
4:30 or 5. We did a little bit of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
tidying up before we started.
Yeah,
for
I
real.
think 5 was the official start
And
point.
we ended like
And
almost 1 a.m. with
we
like
had
an
like
hour
2.
break, probably total.
So
Yeah.
like 7 hours or 6
Pretty
hours, I
solid.
guess.
Solid.
Is that like standard?
Yeah, usually I prefer 6-hour sessions with a break in the middle, because you get a lot of stuff done, and it allows for a pause
Yeah.
between, because it's just D&D can get very tiring if you're involved in it too much. You need breaks and stuff because eventually
Yeah.
your body just gets tired and you need to give a break. But
I don't know if you guys
It-
experienced it, but my creativity I felt was going like I was being less creative. I don't know if it's because I was tired or because I'd been a part of the campaign for so long. Probably because I was tired, honestly. But I was like doing more predictable things. I think towards the beginning I was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I'd say like so, yeah, probably a mix of the two. Because definitely toward the end, I was like, oh man, I have no idea like how. Because we had like it was kind of a puzzle, I guess, at the end.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
yeah,
Uh,
it
in our
definitely is the
specific.
puzzle, which I'm going to keep as much a secret to myself because
No, yeah, please do. I don't want to be
I want
spoiled at all.
I want
Yeah.
it to be a surprise for y'all.
Mhm.
But yeah, I have big things in store for y'all's campaign. It'll be fun.
I'm
Awesome.
excited.
Yeah, me too. So I think most people know that D&D stands for Dungeons and Dragons, but what I
Really?
didn't know going into this, yeah, yeah, you're gonna mock me or something. Anyways, going
Sorry.
into it, I didn't know the difference between 2E, or I didn't know that 2E and 5E like was a thing. I just thought it was kind of
Yeah, so
Right.
there are currently 5 editions to Dungeons and Dragons.
right.
And there's more if you count like the stuff that Gary Gygax released before first edition. Before it was actually called Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, I'm sorry. The music is just a little loud. It's kind of hard
Oh,
for.
You can turn it down
Is there a way?
if
yourself.
you right
Oh, I
click
can
on
turn it
the
down.
Yeah, if you
Oh,
right
yeah,
click it, there's
perfect.
a slider.
yeah, it was probably pegged at 100 for you rather than
Oh,
like
bless.
15.
Yikes. Oh,
Oh,
bad
bless.
host. Bad
I
host.
was like, this is
Just trying to
really loud.
converse with like a super loud Skyrim engine. in his ear.
Yeah, so yeah, sorry for those who don't know. I'm fairly new to Discord. So trying to figure that all out. But yeah, I would. So if you count the stuff before first edition, then you have things like Chainmail and a few other games that were released before Gygax made first edition. And first edition is basically the culmination of everything that he did prior. But after that, there's 5 editions, and basically, the first 2 editions are very similar to each other, which is why they work so well. Like some of the stuff y'all are encountering in the campaign, because we're running a second edition campaign,
Right.
is actually first edition material, but it works well enough that it fits within second edition without me having to change it. because
Is it like additive? Like with
Uh,
each editions, is it just like it adds more stuff each time, or is it?
not necessarily. So first edition is like its own beast, and it was fairly chaotic and really rough around the edges, which some people really like. But second edition was when they decided to go back and organize it to where it's easier to understand. And then second edition got these players options and other stuff like Oriental Adventures, which I have some books here that they added on later. Towards the end of TSR's ownership of D&D, and after which the company eventually would go bankrupt, and then they would make third edition, which 3E was really different from 1 and 2E. They had some similarities, but they also had, it's like this weird middle child between the old generation and the new generation of 4 and 5E. And so it's a little odd. And so there's that. And there's like half editions, like 3.5, 2.5, where they added in players options. And then 4E was a completely different thing. 4E was them, the new company that owned it wanted to be able to computer program it into a video game, and so they hyper simplified a lot of the rules. But 4E has been critiqued for a really long time for being really unbalanced because it was like their first go. Whereas like first and second edition had the benefit of having chainmail before it to like work out all the kinks. And so fifth edition is essentially cleaning up fourth edition. And it has a lot of simple rules. It has a lot of things that one skill will apply to a bunch of things. Whereas second edition, like that skill applies to one specific action, and it's a little grittier in that sense. Because if you have a survival skill in fifth edition, it's fairly different from a survival skill in second edition. Because second edition, one, your skills are completely independent from your stats, in the sense that you earn them separately. The bonuses aren't really affected, but the roll is affected by your stats. Whereas in fifth edition, your stats and your skills are completely intertwined, where if you get a certain stat, like you know exactly what bonus you have based off of your stat. And so that can be really handy for a new player trying to learn, because it's simple, it's easy to understand, but it kind of lacks a certain depth that I prefer, because I like the little nuances, the weird nooks and crannies of a game system. And so that's what I prefer in a tabletop game, because like I like video games, but like if I'm playing D&D, I don't want to feel like I'm playing a video game. I want to have a completely different experience.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I had that. So I had that exact like feeling throughout our first session there, because like there's so many things you can do in a tabletop game that you really couldn't do if it was a pre-programmed game where there was set limitations and everything. There really are no limitations except for what the DM kind of imposes, you know.
With that in mind, how flexible is D&D in general? How flexible is it? Are you willing to be about it as a DM?
Yeah.
Okay, so I usually, when it comes to a campaign and how much I'm willing to bend, rules, I am willing to bend as long as the situation makes sense and it makes a good story. Because in my opinion, the number one thing that is important to D&D is storytelling, and everything else comes after that. The rules are really just guidelines and suggestions in order to make a more convincing story. and a more consistent feel so the players don't feel they're cheated. Like, if I could DM without any rules, without fear of alienating a player, then I would.
Oh, I see. Okay,
but
that makes sense.
But like, you need rules in order to kind of ground yourself and let you know what you can do better in a game sense. And so, like, I'm willing to bend a lot of things. Like, I'm willing to make entirely new classes, as y'all have witnessed, and I'm willing to do a lot of things as long as my players have a cool story in mind that they want to do.
And I always feel like people... Oh, go on, sorry.
I just feel like, you know, it's a story that's being told between the DM and the players. And so if the players want to go a completely different route than I was first intending, like in the campaign that I have with my family, I was intending on them staying in this one city and finding all of these hidden secrets. They decided to leave the city and travel halfway across my planet to a different country and completely restart. They started running guns into a war zone.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm guessing that like something like that requires a lot of improv on your part.
Quite a deal of improv. Like I had to quickly look up like exchange rates for different metals and inflation rates in war zones and stuff on the spot, and it was very much stressful. But you know, that's just part of the game. Like, if your players want to go a certain direction, you, the DM, cannot rule them with an iron fist. You have to learn how to cooperate with them to make a story that you all want to be a part of.
It's like you're playing a completely different mirror image game at the same time as the players.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much.
I always feel like, so the rules are there to, because I always feel like whenever people are constrained, they're almost more creative, so that they can get around things. So the rules are there to promote creativity, but then also the players are there to promote your creativity as well, because it's just like this cesspool of creativity.
Nice cesspool. Yeah, that's a good word for it, Million.
Cesspool.
Really good word.
I mean, hey,
it's a melting
everyone's
pot.
Just there. Melting pot, sure, we can call it that. Cesspool is my word. It's my word of the day.
Well, that worries me if you think that our campaign's a cesspool so far. I might have to make some changes.
I never said it was a bad thing.
One thing I really like about the way you DM in particular is the way that like whenever I played any D&D, our DM would always want us to like really stay as one cohesive group and not go like anywhere alone. But like whenever whenever we were alone, kind of, it almost felt like, I don't know, because I sometimes like to envision like what's going on in the campaign in my head. I like to like, it almost felt like there was a movie happening, you know, whenever we were apart. Like it would switch between our perspectives, like, you know, cut and everything.
Like Star Wars.
Sort of, yeah, I guess. Or any other movie that had like multiple characters doing different things at once. But I really like the way you did that.
Yeah, well, I certainly try to, because I kind of view it as like, you know, each of y'all are like protagonists in your own right. And so if I have a whole bunch of main characters essentially that I'm playing, I have to switch between their perspectives equally. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's easy if you're trying to conquer a specific goal to keep everyone together. Right. And like, there are some times when like staying together is probably the best thing for the party, but I find it particularly interesting when you allow characters to go off on their own, to have a life essentially outside of the group. And so one, it allows you to invest into your character better. Because like, if you just view your character as like, oh, my character's entire identity is being the healer for this group,
kind of like just a cog in the wheel.
Exactly. Yeah. All you're ever going to feel is like, this is my job and that's all I'm good for. And frankly, like, if you're only viewed as the meat shield or the spellcaster or the healer of the group, then like your character just becomes one-dimensional and boring. And you don't want that. I don't want that. And so I feel like you almost have to allow the characters to act on their own, often isolated from from each other, so that way they can kind of become their own person. It allows the player one to think, well, what would my character do in this scenario without anyone telling them what to do.
Yeah.
And one, it shows me who's a good role player in my group. It tells me two, cool characters in my group. And that's really like in those moments and in moments where the campaign is going off the rails, those are the ways that those are the two times that I can see which characters are memorable.
Right. Yeah.
And so I want memorable characters, so I want to give them opportunities to be memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like my character. Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
Go on. I was gonna completely go a different way.
Okay. Well, yeah, my character being like a little tiny, halfling, kind of a bard. I wanted to be kind of like a brave but like more foolhardy character, and I really enjoyed the ways that you like allowed me to kind of pushed my character into being alone, like on night watch or whatever, and allowed me to kind of role play that out and just see the consequences,
Yeah.
Because I guess the way I see D&D, I'm not trying to like game it. I'm really trying to play my character almost.
Yeah, which is exactly what I want.
And I feel like really like going out and being brave that night watch, but then in the one fight that we had, really, I like the fact that I fucked up real bad and then lost my weapon and like completely made a fool of myself. Like that's really a good story.
Fool jingles away miserably.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you liked it, because like I'm here to play a fun story for y'all. A lot of the times I have some extensive notes on certain parts of my world, but in other aspects I almost go in somewhat unprepared in some aspects, and I just kind of play it by ear. I see what the dice say and we just roll with it, and I think it's turned out pretty well for me so far. Like I've run a few exciting campaigns. It's usually, my campaigns are usually very dependent on players who want to play their character, though, which is why that makes me happy to hear like you're trying to play your character. Because some players will play it like they're trying to beat me, and it's like, no, that's not what we do here.
I'm gonna find a cheat.
Yeah, like I'm not here to beat y'all. You're not here to beat me. Because frankly, if we were to get into that fight, like the DM would win every time. Because like if the DM really wanted to, I could drop a greater god on you and just destroy all of y'all instantly, but that would be no fun for me or you. Like the entire point is to like work together to have something fun as a group, and so that makes me happy that you want to role play it.
Have you ever had to just smite someone who was taking the fun out of it for everyone else?
Oh my gosh, yes, so many times. Okay, so there was one person who I played with in a college campaign, who they they would go around and they would try to get rich and get power. It was a female player. It was two female players actually who would tag team, and they would try to seduce every male NPC I had. And so like eventually I got so sick of it. And so eventually I gave their character a homebrew STD in order to curb their because like they would anytime one of the players would start role playing with this NPC, and they would be getting really into it, and they're like, there was one time they were trying to negotiate with this local lord to help them overthrow this evil king, and like one of the characters was getting really into it and like, no, you have an obligation to help your people to overthrow tyranny and stuff, and he was having this full-on debate with this lord, and then they just go, hey, we're going to make explicative hand gestures towards the king and like nod towards the entrance, and they had charisma up the wazoo for their characters, and so like the dice of course allowed it to happen, and so it's like, well, I can't say no because the dice said it happened.
But Carl, that means they're flirting with you, technically, right? If they're flirting with the characters and you're the characters, doesn't that mean they're to some extent flirting with you?
Carl really
somewhat, but it wasn't really that vibe. It was much more like they were just trying to see how many points they could score on top of the other players. They kept a tally card of how many NPCs. No. Trust me, but it was not a revelation that I would even want. Like that was just no fly zone there.
Fair enough.
But no, I had to come up with that because it's like, well, you're sucking all the fun, because that happened on multiple occasions where someone was getting really into their character and then they're just like, I seduced so and so, and then it's like, what? Why would you do?
Yeah,
it's like we were having a good time. This is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, right.
And so yeah, I had to do that. But yeah, there have been a few times where like people sucked fun out of it, and so I would come up with some clever way to kill them. I don't want to drop like something huge that would obviously kill them that just seems non sequitur to what we were doing. Like I would try to make it make sense, but like sometimes it's just like they're obnoxious characters and they're obnoxious players, and sometimes when like fate has its day and wants to screw with me, it makes the two of those things become one, and it's just really bad. But yeah, it's like I don't want people who hog the attention. Like if you're hogging attention in a D&D session, you're kind of missing the point.
Yeah. Right. To the other side of that same coin, Badger asked, what part of D&D brings you the most fun as a DM?
Oh my goodness.
Badger asking the hard-hitting questions.
Okay, so there are probably two things I would say. The first one would probably be at the end of a successful campaign. And all of the players are kind of like basking in their victory, and they're like cheering each other on and stuff like that. Same effect happens when somebody rolls a critical success at a really opportune time. And everyone's hype, especially in person. Like Zoom kind of kills it. Like virtual D&D kind of kills the vibe, but like when you're in person and you're around like a big table with like 6 or 7 people, and like y'all are like clinging to life, and somebody rolls that critical success that brings y'all victory, like everyone just screams and gets hype about it. It's like insane. But that's probably my first one. And the second one is there have been a few times where like, you know, I finish up a session, and usually it's like I'm cleaning up my stuff, I'm getting ready to go, and then people tell me like, hey, I really enjoyed tonight. Like I never thought I would play D&D before, but like this was really fun and I enjoyed it, and I want to do this more often. And like knowing that my story got somebody to fall in love with the same game I did, like that brings me happiness. So.
Yeah, that's got to be pretty cool. That actually, I was thinking about it. So D&D is typically, thought of as kind of a nerdy kind of game. You picture D&D, you picture all these kids in a basement, kind of playing it by themselves. But like, how many different types of people have you had in a game? Because I already know, some people from our varsity football team in high school has participated in it, and that kind of blew my mind when I first heard it. I was like, what? Those people would play that? Okay.
Yeah, so let me think. So I have, like, as you guys know, Hunter plays. So he's
Right.
like he's a physics major at Alabama, and I have you three. Uh and all four of y'all are band people, but
Yeah,
I
we're all
also
cool.
had all I've also had I've had honors college people from my university. I've had people from the business school. I've had student athletes that have played. Um, I've had quite a few people. I've had like full-blown frat boys in my D&D sessions. One of them played a bard
Yeah.
in one of my campaigns, and he had a thing about his character that even he doesn't know about because I rolled for it in his background, but he is a human being, but he's currently possessed by a powerful entity that he's unaware of. And so there's certain times where his character will just black out when nobody else is around and he's being like attacked by something way more powerful than his character, and he wakes up and like either that thing's dead or he's like in a completely different like place, and like the party would find him like in an open field just like with like a whole bunch of like dead bodies around him. They're just like, how the heck did you do this? And he's like, I don't know, I don't think it was me.
I woke up like this, man.
But like, yeah, I've had people in frats. I've had party people in my sessions. I've had a few of my RAs in my games, and I've had varsity football players. It's like there's a lot of different people that I've DM'd. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
It's cool. I mean, it's an RPG, right? You can make it what you want, so it doesn't matter who you are, right?
Yeah.
That's the cool part about it, I think.
Yeah. And like every group brings in its own vibe. So like y'all's vibe is more like a high fantasy kind of, I could see it being like one of those novels that we would probably get at like the Scholastic Book Fair. Like The Adventures of So and So, and like it's just a whole bunch of like really wild characters that just do crazy stuff.
Like a Monty Python.
Yeah, it's almost like a Monty Python scenario. Whereas like the varsity football players are much more like they kind of play it like a Game of Thrones or a Lord of the Rings cross, where it's just like, lots of people die in their campaign. And there have been several times where that entire party has almost died. And it's it's just kind of cool to see the different vibes that play into my different campaigns. So yeah,
because I'm interested to hear about like new players versus veteran players as to how the character, the person themselves, translates into the character they create. Like, because I can probably see how the varsity football players would make this really badass like warrior character that goes around, just wreaking havoc on everything. And then I don't know. I think my character I designed to be kind of a projection of myself, and I just did that.
A tiny gnome.
Well, yeah, that's me. A tiny red-bearded, red-headed gnome
Minecraft
thing.
character.
But
Yeah.
I felt myself projecting all too much. But I wonder if like the more experienced players, they kind of play a character rather than being that character at the same time. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I would say this. Newer players definitely they either do they usually have some wild concept for like their character and what they are at first. But once they get into the role play scenario, they start going, "Oh, I don't know how to play this."
Yeah.
And so they basically play them if they were given like magic powers.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
um and so like that's usually how it goes. And the more experienced you get, you tend to start making a little stranger characters, but like ones that would fit better in the world you're playing in, you feel. And you also tend to have a more depth of that character as opposed to like, hey, this is an aspect of myself. Because like taking I'll take some examples from people. So like my sisters, when they play, because they're all younger than me, they usually play one type of character, and they almost never go outside of that role. And I'm usually stuck in the same role too, but that's because our party needs like a fighter or something, and I'm usually, the fighter of the party. Because if I'm playing, it's like, all right, everybody else has some magic or healing thing, or in the case of Ruth, she's stealth. And so I have to be the guy that if shit hits the fan, I can fight to the death. And so they usually make characters that are reflections of themselves.
Right.
Like Victoria plays a cleric almost exclusively. And the more she has gone on, the more outgoing her characters have gotten. But she started, like, Victoria, you guys know, is very shy, and doesn't like to talk to a bunch of people. But eventually she got to the point where she's able to, like, one of her more recent characters is a lay healer named Predri, which is very loud, very outgoing. She has a very obnoxious British accent, and she's very assertive on what she believes, which, like, to some people would be a complete shock if they met her. But like previous characters looked very much like her, and Predri, while she still has aspects of her, like, is different.
Right.
And so like the more I see people play characters, and it's usually not how many years you've played, it's usually how many characters have you developed.
Okay.
Like years play some into it, but the more campaigns you play, the more different types of characters you play, usually the better. Because like if you only play fighters your entire life, you'll know how to make a damn good fighter, but you won't know how to make too much anything else.
Yeah.
But if you learn to play a wizard and a cleric and a fighter and a thief, like if you play one of the each big four types, it's like you get really creative with what you end up creating. So
we've talked a lot about players and characters. I'm really interested though in the world building that you get to do as a DM. Like what goes into, firstly, how much time goes into world building and creating a story, but also like what types of things do you actually, you showed us some artwork you made yesterday.
Yeah.
So what kind of stuff goes into world building in D&D?
Okay, well, the first step of building a world, if you're ever planning on being a DM, you want to have a core concept that you want to build the world around. You don't want it to be too complicated, because that's a mistake I ran into early on. If you try to fit too many themes into one world, it'll explode. It'll be a hot mess. Your players are gonna be like, this is a fever dream. I don't know where we are. So you want to be consistent. So like in y'all's world, in the early stages of the world y'all are playing in, it was very much a fever dream. I had no idea what the heck was going on. But I started developing more refined eras in the timeline. So I usually make a timeline of what I want the world to be like. And I have a few set pieces. Like, okay, this is when I want this to be introduced. And then I don't make anything else other than that set piece. And I usually plan a campaign to be played at that time. And then I let the campaign shape the world around it. So I usually come up with a few countries. The one y'all are on is my biggest world, so it has more countries than most. Like in the smaller Oriental world I showed y'all, there's probably like 6 countries total. And that's pushing it. Because if I'm going to build a world to start off, I would suggest no more than 5, because it gets real complicated from then on out. But then the world y'all are on has like 20. So, and that's because I usually develop the parts of the world by having a campaign in that area. And that campaign will force me to go, okay, well, what's the aesthetic I want to bring? What are some key players in this region? And just come up, why is this place the way it is? Why is it here? So like in y'all's place, for instance, in the Celtic region, I'm like, okay, well, why is it the way it is? It's like, okay, why is there a war between 2 countries? Okay, well, there's, as y'all know, there's a feud between 2 gods, and their sons are on the thrones of the respective kingdom.
Right.
So it's like, okay, we have a framework there, and obviously it can get more complicated, but it starts with like it starts with a concept, and then it shifts to, okay, well, how can I play this in a campaign? And then the campaign basically makes the world as we go. You don't want to fully flesh out your world all in one go. You want to make a rough sketch, and as the players walk through, you paint the lines as they're walking. You don't want things to be too set in stone. It kind of reminds me, there was this cartoon when I was like a toddler that I would watch with my dad, where it was a cartoon about, I forget what it's called, but it was this dog who would walk around and go on adventures, and they wouldn't paint the whole scene around the dog. It would be the dog, whoever the dog is interacting with, and like maybe an inch of space around that's colored in. The ground around the dog would be colored, maybe like the horizon in one specific area that the dog is looking at, but nothing else would be colored in. And it kind of just left it open. It was meant to be drawn so that the child would envision the world how they thought it would be instead of cartooning it the way the cartoonist thought it should be.
That's cool.
And so that's kind of how I want to DM, because I don't want to tell the players how it is. I want them to look at what I'm telling them, how point A and point B are, and they fill in the rest.
Yeah, I kind of got that from this like part of the campaign that we had yesterday, because I kind of like, I knew that we were in this city, Albin, and we had to go to this place that was somewhere in the west, but I really didn't know anything other than there's a road and we're going on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like,
right.
Like I said, I kind of like to envision what's going on around our party and my character in my head a little bit. So I kind of like had my, I had like an idea of like the terrain, where we were, stuff like that,
And I kind of struggle with that, because I remember I kept asking for a map, because I wanted to know where we were and where we needed to go and stuff like that. But it was chill.
Yeah. I will get y'all a map eventually, I promise. I do have a map here, but I didn't see a reason to get y'all a map just yet, because one, not all of it's done, and two, in the place that y'all are at, it's kind of pointless to have a map.
Right.
Which it was like, well, they're just going to end up in a spot where a map would be useless anyway, so why give them one?
Yeah.
Like, that would be giving y'all a sword and then telling you guys, oh yeah, you're going to a dinner party.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Let's see. Oh, okay. This one's a personal question for you, Paul. Would you rather be the DM or a character within? Which one? Because I know you've been doing a lot of DMing recently. So
I'll be real, I prefer being a DM, however. That is because I like the DM offers a lot of control. You can control a lot of what you like. Being a character is heavily dependent on the rest of your party in order to feel good. And if you get a really good group of guys, like, being a player by far is the best thing. There's little to no prep time. Well, sometimes it depends on what kind of player you are, but like, you can just show up, you can enjoy it, you can play a fun character, and just vibe, I guess. But being a DM definitely has its perks, because you feel more invested in the world if it's your own. And so that's the kind of thing I like to do. That's where I think I fit in the best. But being a player is super fun. And it's really hard, though, because I need to find a good group to play with.
That's true.
And it's hard to find a good group, because it's like, not a lot of people I know are veteran D&D players to begin with, and then it's hard to find people who have time and people who aren't just going to be there to like stick it to you, and it's just like, well, I don't want that. So
yeah. I mean, our group is I'm glad that all of our group is pretty nonchalant. Hunter might not have, I don't know if Hunter kind of wanted to be as easygoing as we were, but
he kind of seemed to roll with it, though. I mean,
yeah, I'm glad that he did, because he didn't really have a choice.
Yeah, Hunter was definitely going for a much darker vibe than the rest of y'all.
I feel like I was going for a much more, like, okay, Blaine went for a very unorthodox type character and unorthodox type build. For some reason, whenever I set myself in a fantasy type situation, I always really I wanted my character to fit into the world he was gonna be living in. Whereas Blaine's is kind of an outlier in a lot of different ways, both just literally and within the game world itself.
Yeah.
But I like to, I don't know, whenever I developed my character, I was thinking along the lines of like, what'll make him unique, but not so unique that, you know, it won't pull me out or anyone else out of the world. I think Carter's character is certainly the darkest in our party, but I still don't even know what the intent of my character is, because he's sort of, I'm playing this thief who is sort of, you know, like, when you think of a thief, you're thinking of someone who's really greedy, who wants to steal from people, but so far I've been playing this kind of Robin Hood type character, and it's really fun to try to evolve that within my own.
He literally gave us money every night. He would sneak, not even
like
publicly.
The Tooth Fairy.
He would sneak into our bags and give us 200 gold.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. I don't think my character's even found out about that yet. In my
you did buy something at that market. You just didn't realize.
Yeah, I guess I didn't like look at my bag.
It was somewhat hasty because of the exchange.
yeah, that was an interesting bit of the little movie that we had going.
Yeah, my character really doesn't know when to fucking stop sometimes.
I think I made my character because, like, I don't know, because you said that the group we're gonna be linking up with and playing with probably, or definitely, you know. I hope so. That'd be pretty interesting to see. But I made it because, like, you said that all of them are pretty much kind of big, beefy, you know, like really hard DPS or tanks or whatever, you know, and kind of darker. But I just kind of want to make a little lighthearted bard to, I don't know, add some contrast maybe. I'm not sure.
I like that we're both lighthearted. What I don't like is that you hate me.
I feel like it's a natural it's natural for my little halfling bard to be racist against gnomes for some reason. That just felt right.
You might be projecting a little bit into the game.
Who knows? I don't know. I'm kind of role playing my character around the story, I guess, because I don't really have a plan.
Another question from Badger that I think we've talked about in private yesterday. But he asked, do you have any future world ideas planned, or do you build each world around people you know will be playing?
Ooh, so yes and no. When I build aspects of a world, I usually do have somebody in mind. So like character classes, I do have people in mind when I make those. And I usually build them off of an archetype of somebody I know.
Okay.
Yeah, so I usually have that, but like for most worlds, it's usually like, hey, I had this cool idea, or I watched a cool movie or read a book that I really liked, and I'm like, huh, that's a cool idea. And then I'll do some sketches of what I think an aesthetic for this world would be. And then I'll sleep on it, and then I'll come up with stuff. So I have this Oriental world that I talked to you guys about yesterday, where it's this postmodern world, but where the inhabitants of the planet don't realize it's a postmodern world. They have all this leftover infrastructure, nuclear power plants that still keep running because they were so well built by the technology of the previous era. But there was something that happened that caused a significant loss of knowledge. People don't know what started it.
Like a second Dark Ages.
Yeah, essentially. So it's basically, what if you fell into the Dark Ages from right now?
Yeah.
And so it's just like, well, goodness, I don't know. And so there's like a good portion of the world that's uninhabitable because of this poisonous mist. And there are, because of this poisonous mist, some of these nuclear reactors are not maintained. And so they blow up and cause imbalances in nature. And seeing that I based it off an Oriental world, I took the Japanese concept of a kami, which is a nature spirit, that if the balance in nature will become unbalanced, then the kami of that area will arise and rebalance it. Usually through the form of taking revenge on whoever was responsible for the unbalancing, which in most cases are humans. Because most of the time humans are fairly ignorant and don't know better. And so it causes the people in this world are terrified of these giant nature spirits that will just seek vengeance on them. So it becomes like there's spirit folk, which are like smaller kami that appear human, and they kind of try to blend in with the populace and just live their lives, but in extremely emotional ways will start acting more and more like their spirit kind. And people are very racist towards these individuals because they resemble the beings that are so powerful and cause fear among the populace. And so, one, it's a lesson in how fear makes us stupid, but it's also a world where we can kind of see the necessity for balance and understanding. So it's like I usually have a concept, and I also have like an aesthetic that goes along. And so that's one of the worlds I have. I have another world that's another solar system I've made that's all elves, and that's where the elves in my D&D universe that I've made come from. And I usually make homeworlds for each of the races. Like, there's a homeworld for the orcs, and there's a reason why they're spread across the universe now, even though they're not a spacefaring race. I have reasons for that. But yeah, so I have a lot of things, and I usually try to mix in modern problems that we see in our world around us and try to put them into context, and my players basically have to work their way through and find solutions for things. And so it's kind of a two-edged sword. Like, we're having fun, but we're also like, there's usually a message behind it.
It connects with the players more because it's a reflection of current events.
Yeah,
that's cool. Because that one that you described, the Oriental world, sounds like a really, really fun one. I would love to play in it.
Oh yeah. Well, once we're done with this campaign, I'd be happy to run a session.
Yeah, getting a little ahead of ourselves already.
I have a stipulation that all of us have to be a bard.
We'll talk about that more later.
Ooh,
can we make it through with all of us being bards?
But here's the thing with Oriental. They have completely different classes. Bard's not even a thing in the Oriental Adventures.
I'll make it work.
How many strings are you willing to pull then, Carl?
Yeah, I'll give you 2 gold pieces.
I'll think about it.
Oh, there's the deal.
Oh man, 2 gold pieces. That's
in real life gold.
No.
Real life 1 ounce gold coins.
Oh god.
24 karat gold.
Dwayne's watching his student tuition go down the drain.
I'll melt it all down myself. You two have a forge, right? Somewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll melt the gold down ourselves.
Yeah,
that's for a separate episode to talk about.
Y'all have a forge?
We'll do some blacksmithing on a...
We're gonna have to...
They're just spray painting nickels. Yeah, we'll spray paint some nickels with gold, very metallic spray paint, and give them to you if you want to let us be bards.
Excellent.
Can we shake on it when we see each other?
I think you guys are already investing too much into this completely separate campaign.
Well,
I'm trying to live the moment, guys. I think you should try.
No, yeah, I am excited for what's to come in our current campaign. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It'll be exciting.
I have I have a kind of a question. What kind of questions do you wish you could ask players, or do you ask players as a DM? Like, what kind of things do you want to know from players?
I usually ask them, like, what were things that they liked about the session, what they didn't like, roses, buds, thorns type thing. I also usually ask them towards the end of a campaign, hey, how did you like how your character turned out?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
how did you like the development? How did you like the arc of your character? And I hope that they do. It's not always the case. Sometimes they're like, oh, well, I was kind of hoping for this direction, but it kind of went a different direction. And sometimes that's unavoidable.
How often?
But
so it's a role-playing game, so the player really does have a lot of control over their own character, but how much of an individual character's arc are you actually able to control as the DM? Like you say, some people aren't as satisfied with the arc of their character. How much of that is your fault, or how much of that is their fault as the player?
Some of it's my fault, I would say, because sometimes it's the nature of the campaign. Like, if you intended as a character to become, I don't know, a wealthy lord or whatever, and the entire campaign premise that I have is like y'all are escaping a problematic situation where you're trying to defeat this great evil, and sometimes your character might end up dying a very heroic death, which could be a really cool ending for your character, and it's very poetic. And sometimes it's the best way to finish a character is an honorable death. But sometimes it's like, oh, that's not what I wanted. I wanted my character to retire and live happily ever after. Or I wanted to become like a ruler of my own little mini nation state. And it's like, well, sometimes that's just not how it goes. And so some of that's my fault, but another very much larger portion is, what direction does the group as a whole take?
That's true.
Because if the group as a whole just says, screw it, we're not going to fight this demon that you set us up against. We're going to go become pirates and sail across the 7 seas and make this basically D&D the Odyssey. Then there's not much I can control, and it's like, well, yeah, you're probably not going to end up as a powerful lord if the only property you own is a boat.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
So
it's
just how it's just how it is.
Fleshed out characters is not something I had thought about before going into this session, and I think that's probably the problem with my character, because I hadn't really developed too good of a backstory for him, so I don't really know what drives him. Not that he really needs to have a drive, he's kind of a go with the flow kind of guy, but gosh, I don't have any future
I think
ambitions.
the nature of this campaign it'll make your character, it'll make or break your character in the upcoming sessions, because y'all are going to be meeting up with the other group of people, as I mentioned before, and so you're going to, their play style and the villains they fight are very intense, and they usually don't hold back, and it's brutal, and there's a lot of death that goes around in those campaigns, and so suffering is a great motivator just for characters. So like, I feel like your character will either find the will to keep fighting, or like it'll break him. And that's usually how characters go. It's like there is a make or break point at some point along the campaign. And that character either doesn't know what to do and he dies, or that character overcomes the obstacles and reinvents themselves. So it's usually how it goes.
Well, I only have 11 health, so I'm probably going to be a little bitch.
For now. Just for now.
I've had characters in my campaign, like Logan described himself in the campaign as a glass cannon, because he can deal death with his spells, but if he gets hit, like, he's pretty screwed. Because I think, I'm gonna be real, y'all are really low health compared to the rest of them, but they're pretty much 8th, 9th level. So they've almost used all of their hit dice already. And so, like, I think the highest number of hit points in that party is like 112. Wow. And that's I think that's Peyton's character. But like,
yeah,
Logan,
he did mention whenever they were playing that they would pretty much just protect Logan and let him deal most of the damage. Like, they were literally the meat shields for him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I don't think they have a single player except for Logan that's under 70. And Logan is like 40 something.
Okay.
So, but he's pretty much maxed out his health. So, but the thing with him though is he's got they have items that augment their abilities, which y'all have just acquired some items that y'all will discover what they do.
Not me.
Yeah, Caleb didn't get anything.
Yeah. Sorry, Caleb. That's just how the dice went.
That's how the dice wanted.
Maybe Andrew will share with you or something.
Yeah, I did get 2 things.
Yeah, he did. He got that ring and
a ring and a cudgel. So, the cudgel sounds like it's a little more up your alley than mine. It feels a little big for me to be using.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm a small arms type guy, so.
Yeah, perhaps.
We'll see, man. Maybe you'll find it in your backpack one night.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like, even they don't know what some of their magic items do fully. So, like, I usually have fairly complicated magic items that you don't know what they do, and you just kind of find, oh, well, they can do this, but most of my magic items that I give high-level players aren't one-trick ponies. So, they usually have a few levels of what they can do, and then eventually the player's like, well, snap, I can do this, and this. Like, that's a pretty cool weapon or item, and it's pretty much, at that point, those items become like character-making items. Like, hey, like, you will always associate your character with this item, and you guys just won't part with it, type deal. Like, starting weapons are usually pretty bad, and like, it's like, okay, so I lost a mace in a swamp, which, by the way, like, I've had players lose maces in a swamp twice, which isn't a lot, but it's kind of weird that it happened twice.
It's pretty strange.
Yeah, you threw it into the swamp, but Doug in the previous campaign was on watch, had his mace by the river as he was sleeping, as he was keeping watch, passed out because he rolled a critical fail on his night watch, and he woke up. As water nymphs had stolen, like, his mace, Peyton's left shoe, and a few other things. And they just retreated into the river. And so he was just like, well, shoot. So yeah, we currently have 2 lost maces in a bog somewhere.
Someone has those maces. Those
And
maces
they're both
are
in the same. They're in the same world, I guess, right?
They are. They're actually not geographically too far from each other, too.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, someone's
We
hoarding
must find
maces
this
in that
mace
bog.
collector.
Maybe we'll find a bandit
Yeah.
who has 2 maces
should-
on his foot.
Yeah, we should intend to go
Admire.
back one day and try to find that mace.
to find my crappy mace in some
Yeah.
huge
I mean,
bog.
Peyton did say that they should go back and try to find that mace as one of their side quests. So maybe
Yeah,
I
we-
can
we
work
could
that
all-
in.
We can all try to find all our lost shit.
That's how we bring our 2 groups together. We come bearing gifts of mace.
Yeah.
We find their mace, they find ours.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a good way to introduce y'all. Y'all won't be disappointed.
All right. I'm
better
awaiting
not
it
be.
eagerly.
Oh,
Yeah.
y'all.
So yeah,
It'll be
we're coming up on like overtime here. It's been a little over an hour.
True.
It has, yeah.
What kind of closing type questions do we got left? Blaine or Caleb or anybody? Anything we can miss?
I always wondered this. Are you a part of the club, the D&D club, at your school?
I actually am not. So
Okay.
here's the
For some
thing.
reason, I thought that.
Yeah, me too.
We don't actually have a formal D&D. We have a tabletop club, but most of the stuff, like, they're very, like, I made contact with them and I'm like, hey, so I'm a DM. I DM 2nd edition a lot. I don't really know 5th edition that well to DM it.
Yeah.
I can play it, but I can't DM it because it's like you have to be really well acquainted with all the rules.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, if y'all want, I can get a campaign going, and like I'd be happy to be a part of your group. And they weren't that well organized, and they're like, yeah, we'll send out like a query to ask if anyone would be interested, and they never got back to me. And I was like, well, all right.
Damn.
I guess I'll just vibe on my own then. So
Yeah.
Yeah, start your own club, like for real.
Start the 2E
Yeah.
club, yeah.
Some of my brother's old friends, once they went to college, at least one of them started the esports club at their team. They have an esports team now at their school.
Oh yeah.
So like anyone could do something like that. I think you'd be a pretty good candidate to start something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought about it. It's a lot of work, but
Yeah,
That's true.
that is true.
shoot, man. Maybe I'll just screw around and end up doing it.
You could probably turn it around as some sort of like excuse to have leadership skills. You know, like not
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
were you the captain of this club, but you created something. You created
Right.
this.
Yeah.
And it has stood through the test of time. I don't know. I
Yeah.
think that is that Homer Simpson?
I mean,
No, it's not.
okay. Never mind.
No,
Sorry.
there's a
Hey.
lot to talk about D&D though, because we spent pretty
Yeah.
much an hour
Oh,
and
yeah.
15 minutes just straight talking.
oh yeah,
about
well,
playing tabletop
you could
games.
talk forever about
Listen,
games.
if I had
so.
more, if we had you back on again, which I sure hope we do, I could definitely come up with a lot more questions to ask.
Oh, I'm here for it. Full
Oh
send.
yeah.
I think what we should close with is, what's your advice to anyone who's either never played or is just interested in playing to try to, get started, or how they could find people to play with and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Right. Well, number one, you have to find somebody who's willing to be a DM. Now, whether you have a group of friends that's interested, if it's a group of you, that's great. Because you really don't need too much to be a DM to start. If you're all beginners, like, just pick somebody and go with it. There are so many books that are, like, if you want to play 2nd edition, I would suggest going to the Trove. It's a website that has a whole bunch of free books. If you want to play 5th edition, you can get it at pretty much any game store. Get a player's handbook and a DMG are probably your 2 most important. And then just print off character sheets and go ham, dude. There are tons of online resources to help you do that. Just pay in mind that even if you don't understand the rules fully, and even if you feel like, if you're a DM, if you feel like you're a bad DM, but your players are enjoying themselves, you're a good DM. And if you're a player who thinks they're a bad player, but at the end of the night, everyone's having a great time, and your character ends up contributing to the party in a way that's meaningful, then you're a good player. And like, don't doubt yourself on that. Just have fun. It's a game.
Yeah.
And like that's what my advice is. If you don't have a group, however, then I would suggest there are a lot of there's a lot of Discord communities that are for D&D. There's a lot of Instagram pages that will promote Discord communities. I've heard there's actually they made a website that's sort of like online dating, but for D&D groups. And you just put in your preferences, and it finds D&D groups that in your area that you can join and stuff. It's pretty sick. But yeah, like, and now that it's over Zoom, like, people are doing things over Discord, over Roll20, over a lot of different systems. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, but I'd try to find a group. If you have a group, great. If you need a group, I mean, if you really want, we're starting a Discord community for D&D that all of us are in right now.
Hell yeah.
So like, I guess if y'all want to share a link to join that, then we can share that if that's even possible. I'm fairly new to Discord, so I'm not. But yeah, so we could absolutely do that, and yeah, join, because the more the merrier.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, full send.
Anything else? Anything small, sweet, short?
No, that's it for me.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, really fun talking to you, Carl. Really insightful.
Yeah,
you're a very insightful guy.
This is a good episode.
I try my best.
Always a good time.
All right, well, thanks for listening or watching in the future, or here live. And
next time, just remember for next time, we got to talk about the Carl flea market story.
Let's close with that. Let's close with that.
All right, it'll be quick.
There's a flea market story?
Let's let Caleb, go ahead and let Caleb tell the story. He was the most involved in this.
Well, let's see. So we went to our local flea market. I think we talked about it last episode, this particular flea market. It's a pretty big one, and they have quite a few stalls. And I guess us three, me, Blaine, and Caleb were, me, Blaine, and Andrew were walking around. And we were just walking around, perusing some stores, just hanging out, because it's kind of a fun place to be. But we saw this guy with like a small amp and a microphone. And I think he was calling out, like, shouting out at one of these stalls, like, "Hey, come on down over here and spend your money here," or whatever. And so I walked up to him. Or no, I was like, we were through walking up, and I saw him. I was like, "Hey, should I go give Carl a shout out over that thing?" And then they were like, "I don't know, do whatever you want." So I walked up and I was like, hey, can I shout my friend out on your microphone? He's like, "Hey man, sure." Because this is all before COVID and everything. He's like, "Yeah, sure, man. I don't, whatever you want." So he put the mic up to my face, and I was like, "Hey, shout out to Carl Schubert. Keep on kicking it out there, man." And then I just walked away. And he was like, "Yeah,
oh my gosh, that is fantastic." When was this? Was this while we were still in high school?
I think it would have been senior year.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't know why I chose you, but
oh, that's great.
But yeah,
I love that so much. That's great.
It's a good story.
See,
alright.
China Spring, what a fever dream.
For
What a fever dream. Alright, but yeah, that's all we have time for tonight. So, you can catch us next Saturday, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time.
I will be at a different home.
Yeah, hopefully
Really?
Blaine won't be a Minecraft character next
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
We will see though.
If you watch this thing all the way through on YouTube, you owe us a sub. So
Click the subscribe button and hit the bell.
Yeah, make sure
If you
you
got
ding
this
that
far.
bell.
Hit the bell.
Yeah, do that, please.
Yeah, but that's it. Thanks again to Carl for coming on and talking to us. It was a great time.
Keep on kicking it, Carl.
Yeah, keep on
Absolutely.
kicking it.
I will keep on kicking it just for you, though.
Yeah.
And to everyone
Just for
else,
you guys.
To everyone else, keep on kicking it. And
Stay frosty.
we'll see you next week.
See ya.